أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على رسولنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وأتباعه وسلم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. So we continue our journey. Our traveler was going through the creation, the existence, asking them about his maker. And last week we were discussing the revelation. And we talked about speech of creator. And I need somebody to summarize us what was left to them from last week. Our good summarizers are generally on this side of the room. So
It's about the rules, right?
Yeah,
Not
for-
gender.
no. It's just that part here is better. So let's get a summary from wherever the microphone goes. Yeah, positive discrimination to those who talk. Okay, please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum. I honestly don't know if I can give a good summary from last week. But I think maybe the main sort of things we were talking about was sort of what it means, I guess what it means to like understand like the speech of the creator, like what is the what is like the speech of the creator, like how do we kind of explore or understand that. And I think the idea was that the revelation was supposed to like help with that. I don't think we got to talking about the revelation yet, but I do remember that we were talking a lot about the speech of the creator, but I can't remember exactly what were the main takeaways.
Okay. Anybody else from that side of the room? If not, Ahmed is ready. Okay, let's go with Ahmed.
So, from what I remember, we were talking about all these physical manifestations of the creator and how we see, like, how the traveler was seeing all these physical realities, including not just the mountains, but then we came to the human realm. And then ultimately, this time the traveler is looking for signs or communication from the creator in terms of a speech that like we're looking for signs, we're seeing the signs, all these other modes of communication, but we were this time the traveler was talking about how the speech of God is again in two different forms, revelation and then ilham and then wahi. And I feel like what stuck with me the most is how Brother Birkan said that like the fact that it is a speech from the creator, from our divine creator, I think we should focus on that instead of like, oh, why is it in Arabic? Why is it not in a language that I can understand? Just the fact that it's speech. And another point that stuck was that what makes a divine speech is it's sort of like a conversation instead of just written text or written speech.
Jazakallah khair. So one of the major questions we asked last time was, do you expect your creator to talk to you? So this was one of the major questions, because somebody is showing up and saying that God talked to me and this is what he said. So for you to really take that claim serious, you should first expect such a thing. Otherwise, you would say, this guy is a lunatic. Yeah, God exists, but why does he? I mean, even if you believe that God must exist, would you still expect your creator to speak to you in a way that you normally understand, you normally communicate? Because one of the questions generally happens to be like, God should talk in a language that befits him. Why should he speak a language that humans communicate with? Like, why is it not a godly language, sort of a thing? So this was the type of topics that we were discussing last week. So I think, and the argument that author putting in here was, as Ahmed was saying, as we are observing the whole existence, like every sunrise, every new day, every newborn baby, or death, anything of this sort, in and of itself is a speech or the message of the Creator with the tongue of disposition. This was the term that author uses, tongue of disposition. Like, for example, this baby is playing in here. Let's say his father is happy with that. He can just smile, or maybe if he is happy of what she is doing, he can bring up a candy and give it to the baby. Like, these are just ways to demonstrate that he is affirming what she is doing. But he can also come out and say that, oh, good job. Like, this is another way to give the same message, but now it's a verbal message. So in this existence, we do observe that the Creator gives a lot of signs of, through creation, everything is a message in this sense. But then the author said, the Creator, it looks like he wants to be known, so he wouldn't only let those creation tell about him, because creation is telling us about him, but rather he himself directly tell us what he is about. So because I am the recipient as a human being, and I understand from language, from speech more, like in a way that I can communicate. This was the idea. Any question, any comment? Otherwise, we will jump into how author was talking about 5 aspects of revelation. Okay. Oh, another thing from last week that I remember was he was referring to his speech being infinite. The Creator's speech being infinite was also one of the points that we touched upon. And as we were like, there's also a verse in Quran about this saying that if the mountains were to be pen and the seas were to be ink, it would be insufficient to write the words of your Creator. This is a verse. So is this an exaggeration? Is this a like rhetorical way of saying? Or what is that? Because speech of God, as we know, is just a 600-page book. Like, and it's enough to have this much of ink to write like a mushaf, a Quran written in text. So how do we understand that? And last week we were talking about this as well, the Creator's speech being absolute infinite. So inshallah, today, let's start reading from The Traveler Recognized That Truth. Ahmed, you have it open there? Would you like to start reading from there? Zahari, it's good?
Just saying.
Okay, Ahmed, he just, okay. So it went to Zahar. It's all because of him. So don't hate me, Ahmed. Okay, Ahmed, it's back to you.
The traveler recognized that the truth, reality, and existence of revelation has been made plain to the point of being self-evident by the consensus of 100,000 prophets, peace be upon them, by the agreement among their proclamations concerning the manifestation of divine revelation, by the evidences and miracles contained in the sacred books and heavenly pages, which are the guides and exemplars of the overwhelming majority of humanity, confirmed and assented to by them, and are the visible fruits of revelation. He understood further that the truth of revelation proclaims 5 sacred truths. The first, to speak in accordance with men's intellects and understandings, known as divine condescension to the minds of men, is a form of divine descent. It is a requirement of God's dominicality that he endows all of his conscious creatures with speech, understands their speech, and then participates in it with his own speech. The second, the one who, in order to make himself known, fills the cosmos with his miraculous creations and endows them with tongues speaking of his perfections, while necessarily make himself known with his own words also. The third, it is a function of his being creator to respond in words to the supplications and offering of thanks that are made by the most select, the most needy, the most delicate, and the most ardent among his beings, true men. The fourth, the attribute of speech, an essential concomitant and luminous manifestation of both knowledge and life, will necessarily be found in a comprehensive and eternal form, in the being whose knowledge is comprehensive and whose life is eternal. The fifth, it is a consequence of divinity that the being who endows men with the impotence and desire, poverty and need, anxiety for the future, love and worship, should communicate his own existence by way of his speech to his most loved and lovable, his most anxious and needy creatures, who are most desirous of finding the Lord and Master. The evidences for the existence in unity of the necessary existent offered in unanimity by universal and heavenly revelations, which contain the truths of divine descent, dominical self-proclamation, compassionate response, divine conversation, and eternal self-communication, constitute a proof more powerful than the testimony for the existence of the sun brought by the rays of sunlight.
We can stop there, inshallah. So he mentioned 5 steps. Let's go back to those 5 and try to understand what the author is saying. And also, these descriptions are important in the sense that how we try to understand Quran is also going to be shaped by what Quran is for us. Because whatever you come to Quran with, whatever expectation you come to Quran with, you will look for things related to that. So let's go with the first one. Or is there any comments before I dive into the first one? If not, I'm rereading and I'll be asking you what you understand. To speak in accordance with men's intellects and understandings, known as divine condescension to the minds of men, is a form of divine descent. It's a requirement of God's dominicality that he endows all of his conscious creatures with speech. Let me reread this. It is requirement of God's dominicality, rububiyyah, that he endows all of his conscious creatures with speech, should understand their speech, and then participates in it with his own speech. What do you understand from that? Question number 1. Number 2, does this affect what you get from Quran or how you approach Quran? Yes.
I just have a question. Why is it a requirement? Like, why is the author so certain that it's a requirement? Like, that has to be a requirement of God's rububiyyah to have speech like this, like endow every creature with speech, understand it, and then participate in it with his own speech. Like, because the question stems from the fact that, like, wouldn't it be fine if he like endows them with speech, understands the speech, and that's it? Like, why the participation with his own speech?
Okay, good question.
One thing maybe, like when we say requirement, the word implies something. It's a subject, like the what is it called? Anyway, the subject is required to do something, as if it implies that it may cause some trouble. Like the way I read it is, it must be so. Right? Otherwise, he's not saying that you are required to, or the God is required to. Like it must be so, kind of. The one example comes to my mind. I look at an artwork there, and there are different colors. I say the artist of this artwork is required to know about the colors. She is required to know about the aesthetic. And if I look at her life, whatever, this is a very bad example, but just to use the same, the word. it is required that in her daily life, I will see examples of aesthetics. It must be so. How I know? Because there are colors in the artwork. And they are put in a way that, you know, they show me the aesthetic taste.
I think the question like still kind of stands because so we see the use of color and then we see that the artist must or compulsory that the artist understands the colors. But why participate with his own speech? That's the question. Like, why is it compulsory for God to participate with his own speech? Like, wouldn't it be fine if like he endowed the speech, he understands the speech?
Let's continue. But yeah, but when you think about speech itself, what is speech? Like in the example color, yeah, you say it is colorful and you stop there. But when you think about the speech, what it means, I guess this necessity comes because speech is not something that being put there and left. Speech is something implies communication. Speech something implies, you know, not only understanding, but also communication, exchange. That is speech given to us.
I guess I was also thinking about how we sort of interact with like children too. So especially since we have kids in this gathering, but when I like observe the parents, for example, like they know, like even if like for example, what Huda or Ali might be saying sounds like gibberish to me, like the parents will understand like what they're saying, and Ali, mashallah, can speak really well now, but I think like we can understand their speech and like roughly what they are trying to tell us, but also we add in our own words. Like even if we aren't expecting them to understand us, like I might try to have a conversation at some extent with like Huda or Ali at a level they can understand, but also add in my own words, like add in like my own sort of like how I might talk to like some of my friends, like, oh, like how are you drawing this, or like why are you doing something this way, just so that like they can still be taught to like think maybe a bit more or like learn more. So I think participating with his own speech is a way to help us learn better, is how I understand it.
Also, as in last week's discussion, since the point was that the way that the universe is happening, now we are not calling it happening anymore because we are realizing that it's a conscious act of a conscious being. So it looks like he wants to attract my attention. He wants to be known. This is why he is demonstrating this. Like if you go to a house, they first bring you fruits, and then they bring you food, and desserts, and then tea, and then they put a pillow under your like. Then you say, wait, what's happening? They want to demonstrate their hospitality. So by their acts, you're realizing that they want to demonstrate their hospitality. So the way that the creator of the universe is acting, you're saying that he wants to be known. But when you say he wants to be known, the very speech that I have is his making as well. Like I am given this language, able to talk and able to understand by him. So if I ask the question, what is this good for? Why am I given speech in the first place? I should ask the question. Like it's not like for humanity to get to know each other, because humanity to get to know each other by itself is not the purpose of why I am here. The purpose of being here is so that I'm going to get to know him. then I should ask the question, what is the role of my speech in me getting to know him? And since speech is made for me as a human being, one of the topmost ways to communicate and learn and understand. So the one who put this tongue in my mouth should understand me, first of all, and then should also talk to me so that I can understand, or I can answer the questions, hear the answers to the questions that I have. Yes.
Just one clarifying point, like what does this mean, like his own speech? Like is there some kind of a difference, or is this just referring to the Quran, like the revelation?
Yeah, so in this text specifically, he is now making a distinction because the whole existence is speech of God. But he said that speech, like a tree, a baby, a sunrise, this is more like a speech, if you like, in body language, if we were to use a metaphor. But now we are interested in a direct speech, which is directly attributed to the creator, and it's not being like sunrise. Because when it's a sunrise, we get the impression as if creator is talking through sun, which is the case, but like it's a little bit of a two-tiered, if you like, communication. So how can we, and I do expect him to give me a clear message saying that this directly is from me. So this is what the author is mentioning. But there's this idea of divine descent. Does this sound fine with everybody? Like it doesn't, does it sound like God came down to earth, like descended like Jesus? Or no? Okay.
Just because you mentioned this, actually, today, Imam was saying that we should take this descending as you said and then left. He was like referring to some ayat in Quran where it says in such, oh no, not the ayah, but he was talking about the narration. It says this is an authentic narration. It says God descends to the first sky. So this is authentic. How else you can understand it? Obviously, he's somewhere, and then he's coming to down, so on and so forth. So I was shocked, and it's not like I would say, what is it called? A marginal group or anything. So obviously, it's a very common thing to understand it that way. Although we laugh, and I think this like other than just the gossiping about other people, we also, I guess, like talking about myself, fall into same or similar traps, especially when studying such texts. Like the way, for instance, we say, okay, his speech, and what we have in mind, he's speaking. It's not that much different than he's changing his place, like coming from one place to another place and so on and so forth. So we should, I think, be very careful. We always look at the creation and that's all. That's what we are talking about. We're talking about the creation and what creation tells us. We are looking at our faculty of speech, and then we talk about what it tells us. Otherwise, if we start imagining God is speaking with a very divine, strange language that only, good for him, whatever, it's the same thing as saying that, oh, he was at the seven, above the seven skies, seven heaven. In Quran, it says it's above seven heaven. How can you deny? The guy was saying above seven heaven, and then he comes to the first heaven, like coming down physically. So we should be very careful. Otherwise, it goes to the same direction and it doesn't make, forget about it doesn't make sense. It also shakes the pillars of the belief. So I guess we have to be very careful with this text as well.
Zareen was going to make comments. Where's the microphone?
I was just gonna say it like makes sense to understand it more. So like not in the like literal sense, as we were saying, but even like throughout the Quran, it says that we have like sent down to you several times. So arsalna, I think, is like anzalna. Yeah. So anyway, like we have sent something down to you, but it doesn't mean that like God is coming down like himself in a physical sense. And actually I've heard that hadith narration a lot too about the descent to the first heaven. And I guess it like never really made that much sense to me, because I think it was talking about like the hour before Fajr prayer is like the best time to make like supplications, because like Brother Birkan was saying, God comes down to the first heaven and is listening specifically at that time, which like I didn't really think about much until sort of later on. But I don't know, maybe taking it more so in a sense that it's a chance for us to get closer, like maybe not thinking about like the exact relative positions as Brother Birkan was saying, but maybe thinking about that distance between us and the Creator shortening, rather than taking it as like a physical, like he's here now, he's closer, he can hear you type of sense. Yeah.
Good. Jazakallah khair. What else? Any questions? I don't want to steer your minds with distorted understandings, but yes.
Yeah, because it's like, obviously, like Allah is not bound by time or space or anything that we can think. Anything that we think that Allah is, it's not, right? And also with the term speech, like what comes to my mind is connection. So is it like when I think of like this first part, like maybe it is like you hear in the language that you know, especially like, let's say, for example, you've been making a dua about something, right? And then somehow it's like you feel like you hear Allah speaking to you or something like that in the language that is your own language. But sometimes even if it's like a feeling, like let's say you're walking somewhere and all of a sudden maybe you have a feeling about something, like that could also be considered a speech from Allah, like telling you, or, you know, like a mother's intuition with her child, or any parent's intuition with their child, like that could also maybe be speech from Allah that's given to us so that we know how to function personally with each other and also like with ourselves. So yeah.
Yeah, inshallah, we will get to that in the second part.
Oh,
The second
cool.
part, when it starts talking about ilham, like the inspiration, it's going to talk about that.
Cool.
But as it's now talking about revelation, this term of descent, divine descent, as Brother Birkan highlighted, we are trying to read it from our end, understanding from our end. And this is a language. So author in here is referring to a common term that's used in like Islamic literature, I would say. So he says, "Tanazzulatul ilahiyyat ila uqulil bashar." So descension of the Creator to the intellect of human. What does this mean? Like, as you are going to try to explain something to a 5-year-old, like you are let's say, a professor of something, but you're trying to talk to your 5-year-old child. How would you talk? Would you talk like a professor in the classroom, or like in a conference? Or since the purpose of communication is that the child understands something, still you're talking with your comprehensive understanding, but talking at a level that the child can understand. So you are lowering to the level of the child. So divine speech is a speech that the Creator of this whole universe is talking to me in a way that I can understand. So it's a descent to the level of my perception, to the level of my understanding. And even if we now go with the idea of 7 heavens, because we talked about samawats in multiple occasions in these discussions. So one meaning that we talked about those heavens, those samawat, was that layers of meaning, like there are layers of meaning in there. And if now that I am hearing this hadith, for example, what I understand, which could be one meaning of this hadith, I'm not saying that this is the only or the best or whatever. So it happens that the verses are there, or my relationship with my creator is there, but Fajr time is a time where I am by myself. And normally speaking, you get rested and nobody's seeing you, so there's no hypocrisy is going to take place at this moment. So these are the things that put distance between me and my creator. So once those distances are removed in the darkness of night, in the silence of night, where I am closer to my honesty, if you like. I'm not trying to pretend. I'm not trying to say that, oh, they are seeing me, so I shouldn't cry. So there's no such worry at this moment. Now you are getting closer to your creator because all those obstacles are removed between you and your creator. So you can then understand it as such, as one meaning, saying that now my creator descended to my level, now that I can have a communication with my creator at this moment. And practically speaking, Fajr time is such a time, like right before Fajr time. So this divine descent is important. This understanding is important. Why? Because now when I'm reading a verse, I will say that this speech is being spoken according to my level. So I am the addressee. What am I supposed to understand from here should become the question. Like this word is spoken in a way that I can make sense of it. Within my conditions, what does this mean? Then when I read a verse, I would try to say, given that this is a descent of creator to my level, I should be able to make sense of this. I shouldn't simply say, well, whatever it is. But rather, I should say within my conditions, okay, Bushra again, no, Huda. Huda, she stole all the attention. So then accordingly, I will interpret verses. This is why really interpretation of Quran changes quite a bit if I apply this descent or reading it as my creator's speech at my level. Then when actually one of the very beginning verses that we studied here, everything in the heavens and earth and in between glorifies him, but you do not understand their glorification, was the verse, right? If I take it as divine descent to my level, I would say my creator is trying to tell me something with this. He is not saying that you can never understand them. This is how we read it, right? So, because if I read it as, no, creator is speaking from like this authoritative place and saying that you can never understand it, don't bother. But if I say it as, no, creator is speaking to in a way that I can make sense of it, then I would say, if he's telling this to me and the purpose is guidance, then this should mean try to understand their glorification rather than teasing me, saying that, ha ha ha, you don't understand. So my attitude towards Quran changes if I apply this to verses. Okay. Any other comments, questions? If not, we can go. Okay.
So the second paragraph, it starts with it's a requirement of God's dominicality. I thought that was very important. Like it's kind of explained the first part, this divine descension and so on and so forth. In the original, it starts with the human, not the God. I guess that's very important. Like when you translate in the English, it captures the meaning, yeah, but the style, the method of the author is kind of lost. In the original, it starts with the zero, the let's say human beings. It says the one who endows all these human beings with this ability to speak, the ability to understand, and so on and so forth. Like it starts with this ability of human being to speak. That's the beginning point. And this is always the case with Imam Nursi. Like it always starts from the creation. So he doesn't say the God speaks, of course, because he's the one who speaks, like as explained in the Quran. Mutakallim? Yeah. He says, no, look at yourself. You have this understanding, you have this ability to speak and so on. And by the way, when we say speech, we shouldn't take it necessarily as, this a specific instance of the speech that I'm, for instance, articulating. Like it's something, historical contingency that I'm speaking English. I might be in another country and speaking another language. Doesn't matter. What is fixed, what is constant there, that my understanding, my ability to understand language as a medium, exactly, right? Whether it is Turkish, French, and so on, like embed this lady into another culture, she will speak that language. Anything is changing? No, right? So she has something that we call as language, right? This universal, the capacity. He starts from there. And he says, I mean, look at this. You can also take it as a need, okay? That you need as a human being to be spoken, to speak and also to be spoken. You have such a need. And then he says, like when you ask about this capacity, you directly jump, and I'm just expanding the text a little bit. This is what I understand from it. Says if you look at it, if you study the capacity to understand language, you will realize that it's not yours. You don't have such power to create this. You don't have such knowledge, the ilm to create this. That's coming from someone, something. It is given to you. It is being created to fulfill a purpose.
This is the babies. When they start talking, we say, "Oh, then update come."
Exactly, and we do say. The others say they learn, right? The liars would say they learn. I mean, if they can learn, why they don't start learning right away, right? So, but when you look at them with an honest eye, you say, "Oh, okay, a new update just arrived." It is given to them. And it is given to them, the part by part, to even more emphasize that it's not her that creates that. Because the end product is so sophisticated, and she cannot even create just one word with her own will. She cannot. She's right now trying to say something, for instance. She's trying to explain what this is to me, and she's doing just gibberish. She cannot do it, right? So obviously it is being created. This is what author says. And then when you look at this, you would say, okay, it's fulfilling a purpose, right? And then he says, the one who gives this need, who gives this, purpose-seeking, the creation, because of his what? The translation is Dominicality. The original is Rububiyah. What Rububiyah is? The one who takes care of, the one who shapes, the one who fulfills the needs. That's quality of him that you observe in the creation, not memorizing from Quran or anything. You observe in the creation that he takes care of her. Every moment, he's giving her a new ability. And then he is also creating the environment in a way that this ability will be effectively used. The need will be fulfilled. He's taking care of all this. And I say, if he is the one who's the Rabb, this Rabbness, Rububiyah, necessitates that this language, the capacity I have, will be the need I have through this capacity. What I mean with this, like a car, for instance, has a capacity to run using gasoline, right? The car has such a capacity. It is also a need for a car to have the gas. So I would say whoever designed the car with an empty tank must also design the system in which you can fill this tank. There must be a gas station, I say. right? This is what I mean with the capacity and the need. The human being has this capacity, which means need. It needs to be fulfilled with the gas. And he says, because of his rububiyyah, he must be creating something that would fulfill this need of me. And here comes the created, let's say, the instance of the speech. Like I specifically say, created instance of the speech, like the Musaf, for instance. But when I start listening to it, I say, okay, the speech itself is not created. We studied this before, but anyway, but there must be something in this creation that fulfills this need. Because why? Because he's Rab. This is what I experience in the creation.
Page. Okay, no questions, no comments. Let's go with the second. The one who, in order to make himself known, fills the cosmos with his miraculous creations and endows them with tongues speaking of his perfections. Such a creator will necessarily make himself known with his own words also. Any comments? Is that clear? Sounds good? Okay. The third, it is a function of his being creator to respond in words to the supplications and offerings of thanks that are made by the most select, the most needy, the most delicate, and the most ardent among his beings, true human. What do you think about this one? Since he is a creator, like I'm just paraphrasing it, since he is the creator, then he would respond in words also to the supplications and offerings of thanks that are made by the best of humans, in short. Yes.
I just have a question about this. Is this like the offering of thanks? Is that Alhamdulillah? Like us saying Alhamdulillah for something? But if it is that, and like if supplications are du'as, like how do we get the response in words? Like, shouldn't the, like if I make a dua and Allah fulfills it, isn't that the response? Like, or do we expect a response in words? Like I do see the responses. Like Alhamdulillah, if you get more blessings, I'm like, okay, this is a response from Allah. Like I'm being thankful and I'm being maintained and I'm being provided more. And then if I make a dua, if I make a supplication, then the response would be like either the supplication being fulfilled or not being, either way, it's a response. But like, what does the author mean in words? I'm just a little confused.
Okay. So in here in the third, again, I'm trying to separate it from inspiration because there's going to be an inspiration part of everything that's mentioned in here as well. Like even when you're making a supplication, just the conviction that you know you are being heard, which is an inspiration, is a response speech of your creator back to you. But this is inspiration. So now that we are studying the revelation part of it, so in here, well, actually, it cut both ways because author is going to make a distinction. Right now, he's speaking general in terms of revelation in general, but he is going to make a distinction saying that he will eventually start talking about the distinction between inspiration and revelation. But in general, as I am talking to my creator when I'm asking, so let's start from there. The feeling that, actually, why do you do dua in the first place? Why do you do dua? Because would you just stand behind before a wall and just start talking about how Birkan mistreated you and whatnot? Like you would say, well, somebody will come and say, well, what are you doing here? This wall doesn't hear you. Like, are you nuts or something, right? So the fact that actually when you open your hands, you are asking something, what do you say? I am being heard. And that confirmation is being given to you that you are not feeling weird when you open your hands, right? Otherwise, we would be like acting weird, just opening your hands and uttering some words. If not, nobody's hearing me. So that confirmation being created in me is response of my creator. So this is his speech back. But this is more so in the form of inspiration. So now when it comes to his speech, like as humanity, we kept asking tons of questions to the maker of this existence. And then we do expect a response. Like, are you there? Like, knock, knock, can you tell me why we are here? So him responding back to this speech saying that I take you serious. And here is my answer. Like, first and foremost, taking serious, because responding means I take you serious. If Zainab comes and says bad, and I am just busy with something, what would this mean? I'm not taking her serious. But if I turn and start talking to her and saying that, yeah, honey, what's up? Even saying that, oh, what's going on? Just asking that question is taking that person serious. In this existence, humanity have been asking questions, why we are here. And the creator responding back to this with his speech is taking humans serious and saying that you're doing your job properly and I pay attention to you. Actually, the purpose of me creating this existence is an important part is you. So then I expect him to respond back to me, because otherwise I will feel like I'm not being taken serious. So this is what I hear from like there is one sentence missing in the translation here. As he responds in action, he should also respond in speech. The action part is missing in the English translation here. But in the original, he's mentioning that as he responds back to their supplications and their thanks, offering thanks, which is shukr, with his actions, he should also respond to them with his speech as well. But in all these descriptions, the key point is, as Brother Birkan was highlighting, we start from human being a creature that can understand speech. Okay? You had a comment there?
I was wondering if when they say, like when the author says best of human, does that mean like the best of humans are the ones who acknowledge that they're needy, the ones that acknowledge that they're delicate? I don't know what ardent means. So that's a vocab, new word for me. But is that what the author is referring to?
So like the creator is answering certain people meaning like in his divine speech, for example, the creator does not teach us how to make a rocket. And but certain people are asking the question, actually, in our academic endeavor, let's say. We are trying to get the details of how to do this, how to do that. So shall we expect the creator to talk to all human questions? So in here, I think by saying that specifically, he's first describing who human is. Human is needy. From among existence, okay, let me go with the English. Most select, the most needed, the most delicate, and the most ardent among his beings. Like human beings are as such, like needy and whatnot, but also from among humans, if I recognize my neediness, this makes me a true human. Like if I'm a human being who pretends as if I can create small mountains, Like we are to a certain extent, I can handle it by myself, but after a certain point where I cannot explain it, this is where God comes into picture. If this is my perception, then to what extent do I expect Creator to talk to me? Because I say, well, I can handle it. As sometimes Brother Bikan gives the example, like trying to find a parking spot and say, oh God, give me a parking spot, give me a parking spot. Then finds a, okay, God, I found it, no worries. So then as if like I can handle it after a certain point. If I cannot handle it, I will ask it from him. So if this is my perception of being a human being, then how much Quran will talk to me? Because it looks like I feel like I can do things to a certain extent. So this is how I'm reading this true human being. He didn't simply say true human, but said true human, because apparently he wants to make a distinction about what it means to be a true human being.
About that maybe as well. So you highlighted something very important about the need. So we can take needs in different ways, right? I can say that, oh, I'm in need of water, for instance. And interesting, he's talking about he's being creator. That he's being creator requires this time, this thing. So I'm in need of water, and water is being created. So I don't expect it is being fulfilled in another way, for instance, right? The water need there, it is being created, the water is there. So I think when he says needy, now he's maybe highlighting these fundamental needs of the human being, which is, knowing the purpose in his life, in her life. What is the purpose of my life? Where am I going? What happens? Like it seems after a certain age, sometimes even before this certain age, you just done, the out of battery, and people put you under the ground, and you got rot. And what is the point, you say, right? And when you look at the creation, you don't see the answer there. The creation doesn't tell you the answer. Now, creation is silent with certain needs, and actually the most fundamental needs. The creation is silent. It gives us the indication, but the answer is not there. So we expect that these answers to my most fundamental needs, what I am, why I am here, and where am I going? All these needs, and am I going to, just leave a certain period of time and then no more? Is that so? This is how our society functions, right? We receive these emails. Oh, we have to, we are sorry to inform you that our colleague, Yusuf S, not O, Yusuf S, no more. Right? We receive such emails, for instance. Is this the life? I say. And then I said, these answers must be created as well. And these answers should be given to me, just like every other needs are fulfilled through these created things. This answer must be also given to me. And I guess that's the reason he says he speaks to such true men. Like if you're not asking for such needs, if you're saying that, oh, I'm nothing but an animal with a bigger brain on the front part mostly, and that's all, then your answer is there in front of you. Look at the other animals and you will know where you are going to. But if you are asking the answer to your true needs, your being needy, then he's speaking to you.
So in here, then in the third, we establish it as it's a response to human being. Now, how does this change my attitude towards the Quran then? When I read a verse, then I can also ask the question, what is this responding to? Like if you read a single verse, how which need is this verse addressing? Because it's a response from my creator. Like these terms are important because it is now depicting Quran as a conversation between me and my creator. Some question arose in me, some feeling arose in me, and now my creator is responding back. Like it sometimes happens, you go near a wise man, and then this wise man makes a comment. Most of the time you just let it go, but sometimes it strikes you, why did he say that? Like out of the blue he says something, let's say, so did he see me? Or sometimes it happens that, let's say you are having a certain thing in your life and you think that this guy is not aware of it, and then out of the blue he makes a comment. He says, well, why did he say this? Then if you say that, oh, actually without me noticing, maybe my body language was very anxious and he noticed my anxiety and he's not responding back to my unspoken word of anxiety. So reading it as a response, reading Quran as such can also be useful in this case. Then, why did Creator say this sentence? In response to what? The fourth, the attribute of speech, an essential concomitant and luminous manifestation of both knowledge and life, will necessarily be found in a comprehensive and eternal form in the being whose knowledge is comprehensive and whose life is eternal.
Can I say something very short about the first three? Like what you said just struck me. We didn't do the same thing for first and second. Like then we can take these as the guidance of how to read Quran as well. And the first, I mean, we said it, but just to highlight, in the first we said, okay, then whatever you read in Quran, don't forget it is divine descent. What does it mean? Don't forget it's speaking to you in a language that you understand.
In a level.
In a level, yes, in the level that you understand. That's the reason in Quran there are always these referral to what we see in our lives, right? The mountains, animals, and so on and so forth. Because we are supposed to understand it. So we shouldn't take, as this Imam was doing, he's talking about the God is descending from one place to another place. He's speaking to in the level that I understand. He's not talking about God doing this. How I understand it. Okay, this is I guess the one fundamental thing. Then the second, he says, the one who, in order to make himself known, filled this cosmos with these miraculous creations, also speak with words. And when I read Quran, I read it in parallel to the creation. Every word in Quran mirrors a creation that I observe in like a physical thing, let's say, an experience that I have in creation. There is a one-to-one matching.
Then can we say that Quran becomes an interpreter
Exactly.
of the existence?
Exactly. So I need to read Quran in the light of creation, what I see out there, and I should read the creation in the light of Quran.
Likewise, my own life.
Exactly. The creation, including your own life. Yes. You look at your life, you understand it in the light of Quran. You look at the Quran, you understand it in the light of your life. Same, like I've been through such and such, and this ayah now is talking about this experience I've been through. It's not a good.
By using this, then when Quran talks about Qiyamah, I can read my Qiyamah, the Qiyamah of my century, the Qiyamah of, I don't know.
Exactly. The Quran talks about the Firaun, and I read it as, oh, yesterday I was just being Firaunish to my child, and Quran is now, shaping me, let's say. So the creation and Quran should be read in parallel. And now, third, it's everything a response. Everything you read in Quran is a response to your human needs. You ask something, an answer is given. If you don't ask anything from Quran, nothing is given. What is given will be a historical narration, a story. Like you read the story of the Adam, for instance, you don't have any need. You say, okay, my life is good. Don't worry. I'm a Muslim. And then Quran becomes what? A history. Instead of reading Lord of the Rings, I'm reading, other than Yusuf, nobody reads Lord of the Rings. But instead of reading the Lord of the Rings, you are reading Quran. That's what it becomes. Unless we read it as a response to our needs. Alhamdulillah, such an important point.
So, and any comments about the fourth? Is microphone there?
I had a kind of a weird question, but what Brother Birkan was talking about made me think, and I've thought about this before, but if there is, let's say, a sign, quote unquote, meant to you, and you don't read it, like, was it meant for you? Like, if Allah is trying to tell me something, but at that moment I'm not capable of reading it, or for some reason I don't, then like, was that meant for me at that time? Because that, like, I get sometimes anxious that like Allah has sent me signs and I haven't been able to read them, or I don't read them, or like, how do I discern when I'm what's the word you use, when I conceal it or like ignore it, versus when like I wasn't prepared to read it at the time?
Yeah, so the existence every moment, this is what I understand from Creator's speech being infinite. We are exposed to this infinite speech at all moments, but we keep wasting opportunities in life. Every moment that passes by without either paying attention or being ignorant, sometimes intentionally not looking at there. These are the being moments which I am turning my back. If I were to turn back to my Creator, speech is constantly there, but me being busying myself with something else and whatnot. This is why I think like istighfar being part of everyday life of a believer being in there is, because I'm realizing that the moment I turn back, I realize that, oh, he keeps talking. Unless I shut my ears and eyes, I realize that my Creator is always with me and communicating with me. So this is why the moment I realized that, oh, somehow I dozed out or I zoned out or whatnot, then this is why istighfar needs to be part of my everyday life. Because like in today's khutbah Drexel, it was about istighfar, but generally we tend to take istighfar as like I did a sin, right? But I did wrong. I was ignorant. Like now discussion is happening, Ali is playing and some people are paying attention to Ali and not listening to me. So Creator is talking and somehow either I'm busying myself knowingly or unintentionally and whatnot. But the moment I catch myself, I wasted 2 minutes of talk, 5 minutes of talk, or in our life, it becomes, I haven't listened to my Creator or turned to my Creator to try to understand him for 5 years, 10 years. So, or sometimes 30 minutes, or most of the time, let's say every day, we are getting caught with life. But during the prayer time, now I should start with an istighfar and say, okay, I am back. And now I am sitting before my Creator and trying to recap it. So there's no escape from what you're saying, because unless you can be vigilant 24/7, which is not humane anyways. This is why istighfar needs to be part of everybody's life. Istighfar was part of Prophet's life too. Yes, Prophet didn't have sin as we understand of sin, but Prophet has been a human being to the extent that his consciousness, his understanding must have improved over time. Like, was the Prophet same person when he was 40 versus when he was 60? Definitely he was not, because he received revelation. Like what Prophet was exposed to in the first day of revelation was a single verse of Quran, and in the last day of his life was an entire speech he was exposed to. So his getting to know of his Creator definitely have changed during these 23 years of lifespan. So that means his getting to know his creator is changing, improving over time. When he was first receiving revelation, he didn't know many things. Actually, the Quran, even if you would like to take it corrected Prophet himself's acts as well, which means this learning is happening even for the Prophet. Now come back to yourself. You're bound to have such moments in life. But the thing is, when I catch myself, I would say, oh, I am back, oh my creator. I got lost, I zoned out, astaghfirullah, and turn back to him. So being anxious in this case simply becomes an existential anxiety because there's no escape. You will do this more like one way or another. You can try to minimize it. You can try to be vigilant about it. This is good. But the moment you catch yourself, you should go back. The fourth, I'm going to read it again if any comments. The attribute of speech, an essential, concomitant, and luminous manifestation of both knowledge and life, will necessarily be found in a comprehensive and eternal form in the being whose knowledge is comprehensive and whose life is eternal. Any comment about that?
Do you want to make it maybe like a simpler English?
Okay, so simpler English, and now that we don't have a few brothers who is going to definitely would ask a question, but since they're not here, they won't. So the attribute of speech with an uppercase S, which is an essential outcome of knowledge and life. Like if there's life, if there's knowledge, then there would be speech, there would be talking, must be found or must exist in creator who is absolutely knowledgeable and who is absolutely alive, if you like he is al-hayy and he is al-alim, so he is having this absolute knowledge and life, therefore speech must come from there. This is simple translation in simple English. This sounds a little loaded to me in the sense that what do we mean when we say God is alive? And then what do we understand when we say God is all-knowing? But again, we need to listen to this from our end. Because really, I'm not trying to describe what God being all knowledgeable or God being alive means. Because even when you say alive, if you are entertaining or imagining a living being, which, because our definition of life is what? Can move, can reproduce, can feed, and what? Like there are 4 or 5 basic properties of life, biological life, as we talk about. But what does it mean that we say God is al-hayy, he's alive? Like he is different, giver of life, but we also say he is hayy, he is alive. But what does this mean? In my perception, sometimes it happens that when I see an art, okay, art is there, but there's nothing that says that the artist is alive. Maybe, especially for this piece of art, for example, over there, very beautiful art, but the artist has passed away 100 years ago, probably, maybe even more. There's nothing that indicates that the artist is alive. But if I were to see that the art is happening right in front of my eyes, the pen is moving, I would say, well, the artist is right there. So alive in this sense means I see it in action, and whomever is doing is right there. It's not that he's distant. So the creator in this existence, I observe that the existence is taking place. Just look at your body. The particles are perfectly functioning. I'm comfortably living in this body, and I'm not the one who is taking care of the billions of workers, if you like, working in this body. So my maker is alive, is at work. And he is also all knowledgeable, because however many billion trillion of particles are acting in here, like imagine you have to control that many workers in a company. He's knowing what he is doing. Everybody goes to its proper place. So he is an all-knowing, absolute knowledge. Now take it at the scale of the whole existence. This is what it means that he has absolute. He must have absolute knowledge, because when moving this particle over here, it's not contradicting with the particle that's moving in here. So but while moving this one, you should know where this one is going to go, taking it the largest scale. So this is what an all-knowing and ever-living, if you like, creator means. But now the interesting part is the author says, we do observe that when a knowledgeable person who is an alive person, like knowledgeable, alive people share their knowledge. This is how I'm reading it. Or shall this be how we read it? Let's take, I'm questioning it now. It says people, alive people who know will talk. Now we are talking about a creator who is alive, the way I was trying to explain, and who's all knowledgeable as it's being manifested. He therefore must talk. I don't know if this is a correct statement, but at least at the very basic level, this is what I understand from here. The way I presented it is probably wrong, since Azar is not here. If he were here, he would definitely have picked up on me for the statement that I just made. But what's your take? Any comments, any questions? No comments? No? Yes. So the way I read this is then not to say that, oh, God is somebody like me, therefore he must also talk. I don't read it as such, but rather knowledge and life existing should manifest itself with speech. Like that knowledge, that life, I would expect to come to me or communicate with me, because there's an all-knowledgeable one and he's not dead, he's there. I would expect him to communicate with me, again, from my end. Since he is the one who made me with knowledge and life, and living beings with knowledge are communicating, I do expect that all-knowing and alive being would communicate with me. This is why in the fourth, he is talking about mukalama, and the word mukalama it's not like simply kalam, but it's a mutual word, like it's a conversation. He would converse with me. I am a living, conscious being, and as he is manifesting, the creator is not dead, he is right there. I mean, not physically speaking, but he is closer to me than my jugular vein. He knows everything about me. Therefore, he would communicate with me. Is how I'm reading this.
Right. And like tying back to previous points, then when I read Quran, speech of the creator, who then I shouldn't forget speech is coming from the one who constantly creates everything in my life. Like this is how I understand one aspect of being alive, as it is used in Surah Baqarah, the Ayat al-Kursi, that he's not sleeping or high qayyum and so on. He's constantly creating. Everything I see points to him. I don't experience a universe in which, okay, he, set it up, he created the laws, and then now it's taking care of itself. I don't experience such a universe, because
actually last week a student exactly asked that question. He said in Islam it says creation happened in 6 days, in Christianity in 7 days, and God is resting and whatnot. Exactly that question.
Yeah. So it's really interesting when you read Quran in this way, like it's also at the same time answering such, the arguments as well, right? So if there's for instance, a common idea of the God resting on the seventh day, the Quran would says he doesn't rest. There's no such thing, right? Because in every creation I see that this the thing that I experience requires an absolute knowledge. Everything I realize, like experience in this life, requires absolute knowledge. One part of my body, you cannot explain it without referring to everything else in my body, and then everything else in my environment, and then everything else in the cosmos, and then everything else in whatever. You cannot. Everything is so tied to each other. Absolute knowledge required. And then I see that absolute power is required. I see that absolute will is required, and so on and so forth. And I say, okay, this one, it is his creation as well. But what about that one? Maybe it is, a creation of the previous moment or whatever. Maybe there's a mechanism it's taking care of it. No, I look at it and I see that it's also required absolute power, absolute knowledge, absolute will, and so on. It must be created by him as well. Every moment, everything. So he doesn't sleep, from my perspective, right? Even when I sleep, something is changing in my mind, in my body. He's at place, at work, I say. Again, from my perspective, right? I see it that way. I understand it that way. And Quran, speaking to my level, the first point, coming down, he says, your creator doesn't sleep. I say, oh yeah, this is how I understand as well, right? Otherwise, he's not defining a God who's constantly like awake, looking around, on caffeine, like a boosted being. No, he's talking to me. This is how I understand. I'm a human being. I sleep. I say he doesn't sleep. Okay? So, if this is the case, and the author says, when you read Quran, a speech coming from him, a word coming from him, he says, don't forget this word is coming from all-knowing, alive one. Meaning, is coming from the one who created you in this moment. And he's speaking to you now. So ayahs then doesn't talk about, again, the historical events, doesn't talk about other people. We cannot say that it's applicable. It was applicable at that point, that time, but not applicable anymore. Why? Because the word is coming from the one who speaks now to me. All-knowing. He knows what I've been through just a few minutes ago. What happened to me, he knows, and he's speaking now to me to explain what happened to me a minute ago. And maybe, the emphasis here is that we shouldn't forget it's coming from the all-knowing, alive one.
This is a very important point. So if you're having some, let's say, depression or problem and whatnot, imagine you're calling the doctor, and doctor writes something specific for you, which this is how RX, do they call it RX? So if doctor listens to you and writes some prescription for you, right? You talk to your psychiatrist. Psychiatrist says, okay, here I have written a book for you. Go and read this book. This book is Quran. So specifically, what you are going through in life, the one who is knowing everything about you, the one who is still alive, it's not like he died 14 centuries ago. Prophet died 14 centuries ago. But it is not the Prophet that's talking in Quran. It is the Creator who is ever living and all-knowing is talking. That's why it's a conversation. Because tomorrow, again, when you change, still Quran is going to be talking to you from the same speaker. So I should be sitting before Quran with this consciousness and say that, okay, today, this is what happened. This is what happened to my family, my friend, or such and such, my people in back in the country, in my hometown or whatever. What do I do, oh my creator? This is the speech. I do need that as a human being. This is why we talk to psychiatrists. My psychiatrist is my creator, saying that I know your needs and I'm responding back to you. Here I reply to you, right? Because people, once their mother passes away, they are getting super upset and saying that, oh, mom, where are you? I am so much in need of you, right? My creator, so much more knowing me than my mom, and who is alive, ever alive, is talking here, must talk to me. And finally, the fifth, it's a consequence of divinity that the being who endows human with impotence and desire, poverty and need, anxiety for the future, love and worship, should communicate his own existence by way of his speech to his most loved and lovable, his most anxious and needy creatures who are most desirous of finding their Lord and Master. Any comments, any questions about this last point? Anything that you would like to highlight? This just reminds me of like it happens quite a bit in Turkey. Like a child is born and the parents do not, for whatever reason, wants to get rid of child. What they do is they leave the child at the door of a mosque. The idea is whomever comes to Fajr prayer, they are pious people, so they wouldn't let the child die. Okay? So how do you feel about yourself? This child is very vulnerable, very needy, and mom is abandoning the child before a mosque, never to come back. So you would say, well, what sort of a heart does this mom have? Abandon the child at the moment that the child was so needy, so vulnerable. Human being is so needy, so vulnerable of a creature, with all those feelings we have, with all those needs we have, and we are put to this existence, and we are not as if the creator is turning his back and going away. Not being with you with all his being, meaning he is maintaining you with giving you oxygen, water, and everything, but also human is not simply consisting of this material body. How about all those feelings that I have? I am in need of mercy. I am in need of being heard. I am in need of being given condolences. Like you're upset and you're in need of someone to come and tap you from back and say that it's okay. But this is who human is. And what we are saying is God set up the universe with Big Bang at best. Okay, I mean, still this is sounding a very religious argument, right? God set up the system with Big Bang, let it happen. How about all the agonies that I'm going through in life? Who is going to come and give me these condolences? So the one who is maintaining me and creating me with all those needs will will talk to me and give me with his speech also. Like, yes, he is feeding me with material existence and whatnot. And he created my mom, who is also going to help me, or being like a mirror of God's mercy. But it's not being enough. So my creator will talk to me, if you like. There's this communication channel open between me and my creator directly, where he's going to come and talk to me, metaphorically speaking, but talk to me that I can get this, like satisfy those needs of, I am in need of you, I love you, I say, but all the ones that I love are dying. But there must be this one who I love and who never perishes. Like this verse says, كُلُّ شَيْءٍ هَالِكٌ إِلَّا وَجْهَهُ. Like everything perishes other than the face it looks to him. So I would like to, like as a human being, all those separations are bleeding our hearts. I would like to attach to someone who doesn't die, who doesn't disappear, who doesn't turn his back and leave me here. So my creator says, I know that need. And here I come back to this with a response that will make you feel I am there. So speech is like that. This is why, like practically speaking, speech, communication is so central in human existence. So without putting this into account, we cannot understand any of the things that is being said here. And last paragraph that wraps this up, inshallah, next week. Okay, go ahead. Can we get the other microphone? And again, Arsalan, again, last minute. He
Sorry.
is proving the
So
idea.
what's the difference between the third truth and the fifth one? I don't understand the difference. Aren't they both the same?
So in the third, the emphasis was in responding back to their supplication and their offering thanks. But in the fifth, it is more so this vulnerable neediness that's being provided. Like in the third one, I feel like the bigger emphasis was Zainab calls me, and by talking to her, I say, I take you serious. I am here. Like just being present, saying that Birkan says, hey, Yusuf, I say, yes, what's up? Just taking the serious part, because it's also a thing that you apply, call government offices and whatnot, as it had been happening with like Gaza events and whatnot. They are deaf. Nobody is responding even. At this moment, even somebody saying that what's up is going to be a thing. But in the fifth, he is also now paying extra attention to saying that, not only saying that what is it, but also answering in a way that it's going to satisfy the needs of that person. So the emphasis in the the emphasis in the fifth one is talking to their needs and answering, I know specifically what you're about, and responding to this. This is the distinction that I see there.
Maybe we can also take a distinction with respect to how we read Quran as well. So we should talk about that for fifth as well. So let's do it at once. So maybe in the third, we said you should read Quran by you should understand that what is being said in Quran is a response to you. This is what we said, right, in Quran. In third point, you read Quran as a response to you. Like you open the ayah and say that, oh God, I was playing with my daughter and I experienced this beauty, I experienced this mercy there. It made me so happy. Thank you for creating this. Right? I sit in front of Quran with this in mind. And then the creator starts telling me, oh Birkan, oh, inshallah, speaking away, oh those who believe, right? Just like I created these and that on earth for you, even the bigger ones waiting for you in hereafter, he says. Right? I take it as a response. Or sometimes I read in front of the Quran and say that My daughter didn't listen to me again. I tried everything. She keeps crying. She doesn't listen to me. She's not sleeping. She's not, doing whatever I ask and so on and so forth. And Quran responds, my creator responds, oh, those who don't believe that I create everything with mercy. If you don't see mercy in my creation, do you think you will see mercy when the causality taken, away from you? Then you will face with the fire, just like you are being burned right now. Quran is talking to me. So this is the third, maybe. And then the fifth, he says, when you read Quran, it is a response to your needs, your weaknesses, your the poorness, whatever the translation is, faqr. So then you should sit in front of Quran by realizing all your needs, all your impotence, your powerlessness, rather than complaining about your daughter not listening to you. You say, oh, my creator, I cannot take it. I don't know what to do. You know it. I don't have the knowledge. You have the knowledge. I don't have the power. You have the power. I have this need and I, confess this. And you are the one without needs. And you read the Quran in this way and it starts talking to you. Oh, my dear, the creature. Don't worry. Everything I create with a wisdom. You felt this way, right? Because of this. You felt that way because of that. All ayats can be read this way. And it becomes a response to your needs, your, the weakness and so on. It cures. So then in fifth again, you should sit in front of Quran knowing your weakness, knowing your needs.
And also that the one who speaks is not needy.
Exactly.
And you are in perfect need of him, and the one who speaks is not needy of anything. So to wrap up then with the last paragraph, the evidences for the existence in unity of the necessary existent offered in unanimity by universal and heavenly revelations, which contain the truths of divine descent. This was the first one. Dominical self-proclamation, which is ta'arruf Rabbani. Ta'arruf means to make known. Self-proclamation means to make known. Compassionate response. So, mukabele-i Rahmani. Divine conversation. This was mukaleme-i Subhani. So, mukalame, it's a two-way conversation. And then eternal self-communication. This was a bit of a weird translation he used here. The original text he uses Ish'ar Samadani. Ish'ar means indication, but Samad means he is not needy of anything. So he is responding back to me with his speech, indicating of himself as, I am not in need of anything, but you are in need of me. This is what we say when we say, Qul huwa Allahu Samad. Samad means he is not in need of anything, but everything is in need of him only. So the fifth one, he's summarizing in a single phrase as Ish'ar Samadani. So meaning that now he's talking to me in a way saying that I'm not in need of anything, but you are in need of only me. So that conversation is covering that need of mine. Constitute a proof more powerful than the testimony for the existence of the sun brought by the rays of sunlight. So inshallah, let's conclude here. And in next week, inshallah, we will talk about the distinction between revelation and inspiration, because the Creator talks to everyone. But there's a distinction between revelation and inspiration, as the author will highlight, inshallah. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعواهم أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. الفاتحة.